Good morning, drop-in meditators. Alan here with our Friday drop-in meditation class. Hope you're well. Hope you're warm. So we're starting, as usual, with our breathing meditation. Good to see a few people there. Hi, everyone. Yes, thanks. Great to see some meditators here. So in virtual space. So just starting with a quote from Lama Yeshe, which is wonderful, about qualities of the mind. Second practice we're going to do will be on the mind, continuity of mind. So Lama Yeshe says, the principal concern of Buddhism is the mind. The way we experience every part of our lives is affected by the qualities of our mind and by the colouring filters of our mental attitude. Very deep, the colouring filters of our mental attitude, like the glasses that we're looking, glasses of the attitude being the glasses, how we look at the world. The mind is the nucleus of samsara and nirvana, he says. So we'll come back to that in our second practice, more about watching the mind and qualities of the mind. So for our mindfulness practice, I'm still reviewing some of the wonderful teachings that Alan Wallace gave last year in Balmain on our shamatha retreat. So just a few excerpts from some of his quotes. He quoted a lot of texts and some sutras of the Buddha. So on mindfulness of breathing, he's quoting one of the Buddha's sutras on the benefits of mindfulness of breathing. He says, mindfulness of breathing is peaceful, sublime, and ambrosial dwelling. And it dispels and disperses and dispels unwholesome states wherever they arise. Just mindfulness of breathing can do that. By attending closely to the breath, the mind frees itself from the addiction of doing. That addiction of having to do, wanting to be active. Then he quotes Asanga. And Asanga, the great Indian yogi, points out that when we're doing mindfulness practice, there are two activities of our mind. The first one, mindfulness, which is paying attention to the object, in this case, the breath. And by mindfulness prevents the attention straying from the object. So this is called non-forgetfulness, rather strange term, non-forgetfulness. So when we lose the object, we forget about the breath, wander off, that's called forgetting the object. So this mindfulness, which prevents our attention from wandering because we're putting our mind in that one place. And then there's introspection or alertness. It's different mental activity that recognizes when the attention is straying, and when it does, bringing it back to the object, recognizing, realizing that we're not actually on the breath, we've wandered off. So that's really what the practice is involving. That's what we're doing with our mind in breathing meditation. Placing the mind in the object, that's called mindfulness, and then checking using introspection or alertness from time to time, because we can't do two things with the mind at once. We're using mindfulness, and then we take time out from the mindfulness to just check quickly what's happening. It's the monitor. It's a security guard checking what's going on. So that's the breath meditation. And remember, for the last few weeks, we've been using, we're starting with the breath as the object, and then we've giving the option to let go of the breath and use thoughts, what's going on in the mind, as the object. So again, Alan Watts, some quotes from the great teachers on using mental consciousness, what's happening in the mind, as the object. This is what His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been referring to in his online teachings lately. He calls it the sixth mind. The sixth mind, because we've got the 5 senses which mind can detect, and the sixth mind is the mind of consciousness. So I suppose we might call it the sixth sense, but slightly different meaning in English, more intuition. But so the thoughts and mental activity is what's being referred to here. So the appearances that come into the mind. So whatever kind of mental experiences happen, gentle, violent, gross, subtle, good or bad, the things that might come into our mind that we don't expect, maybe we don't like. He says, just observe their nature and avoid judging and evaluating. Pay attention to what arises, as if you are threading a needle. Remember that, if you've ever done that, threading a needle requires a great deal of concentration. So we're just focusing on what's happening as if we're threading a needle. And then by doing that, thoughts will subside in the expanse of the mind. You'll become still and stable. The ordinary mind settles, thoughts of self and object vanish, there's freedom of conceptual thinking, and this is the essential nature of the mind. Okay, so let's try it. Get a comfortable position, and we'll start. So we're settling our body, speech and mind in its natural state. So that means with the body, we're getting a comfortable position, particularly the spine being straight, which allows all the vital energies to flow through the body. So if we're lying down, straight back, sitting in a chair, straight back, sitting on the floor, straight back. And setting the speech into its natural state, it's like a lute with its strings cut. So we use the breath to subdue the speech. Of course, we're mainly referring here to mental speech, mental chit-chat. So by focusing on the breath, we subdue the speech, that internal dialogue that often pervades the mind. So that's the body, speech, and with the mind, we just observe. Let the mind be as it is, without engaging in good thoughts, trying to steer the mind in any particular direction. We just let the mind be as it is. That's settling the body, speech, and mind in its natural state. Okay, so we just always think of our motivation to start off with. That includes feeling happy and grateful that we can do some practice, take care of our mind. The most important thing we can do is take care of our mind. Whatever state of our mind is in, we just accept it, work with it. We're doing our practice not just for calming a sense of peace in our own mind, but also because it will benefit those around us. And ultimately, the Mahayana Dharma motivation, we or to subdue the mind and calm the mind, take care of the mind, in order to benefit all sentient beings. That is to become liberated, fully enlightened, for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now we just scan the body, starting with the upper part of the body, just checking the shoulders and the neck and the head are comfortable, particularly the face and the eyes. With the eyes can be closed or just gently open, gazing ahead softly. Checking our balance and making sure we're evenly distributed on the floor or the head or the chair. Feeling the weight of the body on the floor of the chair, gentle, full of gravity into the earth, and allowing ourselves to be held by the earth, Mother Earth. Surrendering, letting go. And for a few out breaths, have a sense that we're breathing out all the mental holding on, mental busyness, and all the physical tension in the body. Just letting that out and go beyond space. And then giving our full attention to the process of breathing. Just watching how the breath enters the body, leaves the body, without any control. You can just watch. Just seeing how the breath enters and leaves the body. The gentle movement of the body with the breath. It could be the movement of the whole body. It could be focusing mainly on the abdomen, rising and falling. Or we could focus at the nostrils, the closest point. Choose the most comfortable place to rest our mind on the breath. The more we stay with the breath, quiet the mind becomes. It's so simple. So natural. And then occasionally we check, are we still on the breath? Or have we just forgotten the breath and been distracted by thought? That's common and natural. We notice that. We're distracted. We let go of that distraction. Relax. It's only a thought. And with great patience, just come back to the breath. Staying with the full flow of the in-breath, the full flow of the out-breath. Whatever the breath is doing, we're right there. We're with the breath. as the mind settles, the body settles, the breath settles, we can be aware of the space, the stillness around the breath. The space without limits. We can gently let go of the breath and just rest in the space, if that's comfortable. And just watch the breath from the side, mainly in that stillness, clarity of our mind, still mind. Our awareness is like a fish in the stillness of space. Thoughts may still arise, but with our fish of awareness, they will disappear, melt back into this space of the mind, back where they came from, the space of the mind. If there's no thoughts, enjoy the empty clarity of the mind, the stillness of the mind. Rest there, fully alert, fully aware. Just relax concentration for a moment and have a stretch if you need to. So, second practice is on the nature of the mind, continuity of mind, particularly we're looking at how the mind flows continuously without beginning or end. as Lama Yeshe says, the principal concern of Buddhism is the mind. So this is just a practice to become familiar with this quality of mind, that it is virtually without beginning or end, and also that it's non-material. It's not part of the body, separate from the body. And we can also get a sense, if we feel this continuity of mind, of this mind that is without beginning. So not just in this life have we had mind, but if we accept that it's without beginning, then it feels logical that we had minds in past lives. Mind existed in different forms. So the formal definition of mind in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, is that it's clear and knowing. Clear meaning formless, not having any material quality. So we can't actually see it, touch it with our senses. But it has the quality of being able to see things. Lama Yeshe used that word, the mind can see. Sometimes it's said that the mind can apprehend things, like a mirror, things that pass in front of the mirror, reflected by the mirror. So it's quite a good analogy for the mind. Things that come into the mind are reflected by the mind. Not the same as the mind. The mind is clean, clear, like the clean mirror. And as His Holiness said in one of his recent online teachings, he said, the mind affects the brain. So the science that is being done now is actually using brain mapping to see the effect of meditation on the mind. So they can actually notice, particularly with experienced meditators, how the practice of meditation changes the reactions in the mind. So it can cause different waves, electrical waves, in the brain. So the scientists are measuring the brain, but the actual brain is responding to the effects of meditation, which is using our mind. And the mind is affecting the brain. So very good for those who have some doubt about whether the mind exists. Most of experienced meditators can see that the mind exists by experience. Some materialists don't actually see that. So the other way of helping to convince us that mind exists is that some humans can experience past lives, can remember past lives. Most of us can't. But again, His Holiness pointed out that he could remember when he was a little child and the search party came to look for the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama to his village. As soon as he saw the search party coming, he went out and greeted them like they were long lost friends or relatives, loved ones. So he pointed out that he actually can remember this happening. So that's another good, compelling argument for the existence of mind and life. So in the practice, what we do is just start with our mind as we sit here, just watching the stream of consciousness, the stream of thoughts, memories, images, emotions flashing past. Often said to be like watching the river pass, seeing the river is constantly changing, each moment of mind caused by a previous moment of mind. That's really what we're experiencing in this practice, how each moment of mind leads to the next moment, and this moment of mind experience is caused by previous moments, just like an endless chain of cause and effect. So we start with the present mind, and then we go back to this morning's mind, last night's dream mind, and then way back to childhood mind, even the mind of the infant when it was born, our baby mind. And then we look using reasoning. Most of us can't remember the mind of the fetus in the womb of the mother. And we think, where does that come from? The origin of that mind. So we look at the possibility of the parents giving us the mind. Again, not logical, not feasible, because the parents are two cells that come together at conception as physical, whereas the mind is non-physical. So the Buddhist teachings, philosophy say that this can't be the cause of mind. The parents are not the cause of our mind. That must have been either by chance, the mind appeared from nowhere, which is not very logical, or came from a previous moment of mind, previous life before this one. So basically, this is just an experiential meditation where we use some reasoning, and then we just allow that realization to rest in the mind, and it's just so we can integrate that intellectual understanding with realization. We experience experiential feeling of mind. All right, let's practice. Let's try. Get comfortable. We're just coming back to our mindfulness of breath for a few moments, adjusting our body to be settling it in the body, speech, and mind, its natural state, straight back, quietening our speech, just allowing the mind to rest. Then we begin our practice on continuity of mind by letting go of the breath and watching the mind, what's happening in our mind right now. Could be some memories, plans of what we're going to do later, maybe emotions, maybe feeling hot or cold, bored, hungry. Just watching that activity in the mind. Thinking that this meditating mind now came from our waking up mind this morning. Think of that mind in the morning. We woke up from sleep, leading to the next moment of mind. The mind we had breakfast, the mind did activities in the morning. That connection between the waking up mind and the current mind. Different mind when we woke up, not exactly the same, but that continuity. Each moment of mind leading to the next moment of mind. Feeling that connection. Then the moment of mind we woke up was, before that we had the dream mind, the sleeping mind. Perhaps we can remember some dreams we had last night, feeling that connectivity between the dream mind, the waking up mind. Perhaps the dreams affected the waking up mind. Each moment of mind leads to the next moment of mind. And the moments of mind leave certain imprints on the mind, seeds. This is karma, the act of karma. Our actions of body, speech and mind leave imprints on the mind. Just feeling that connection between dreaming mind last night, waking up mind, bringing us to the current moment of mind. Everything led to this moment, this current present moment of mind. Like a stream, mind stream. Let's go back one step further. Yesterday's mind. Perhaps you can remember certain things, certain events. That moment of mind led to the sleeping moment of mind. Sleeping moment of mind led to the waking up moment of mind. Led to this mind, feeling that flow, continuity of mind. Yesterday's mind, not the same as the current moment of mind, but connected. And perhaps remember some events from last week. Last week's mind. Many of the things we've forgotten already. A few things we might remember. That moment, those moments of last week's mind led into yesterday's mind, led into last night's mind, led into more waking up mind, feeling that link, that continuity of flow from last week to the current mind. Each moment of mind caused by the previous moment of mind. Maybe we can remember something that happened last year. The world of pre-pandemic, pre-corona, different world really. There's mind, the mind we had last year, still connected to this current mind. Perhaps different in content, but connected. Then let's go right back to childhood mind. Just without getting involved in detailed memories, a few moments of childhood we can remember. Perhaps while we were at school, our family, friends, that mind, childhood mind. Probably quite different to the mind we have now sitting here, but again, connected. The childhood mind led to the teenage mind, the adult mind. Last week's mind, yesterday's mind. So just experiencing the vast stretch of mental consciousness like a river without beginning. Each event, body, speech, mind, lays down memories, lays down karmic imprints, seeds on the mind. Then go back to the mind. The time of birth, most won't remember. But if we accept that there is this continuity of mind, the childhood mind at birth is connected to the current mind. The mind before we entered this world, caused by a previous moment of mind. The previous moment of mind going back to the womb, that mind. Where did that originate? Thinking the possibilities of the origin of mind at the time of conception. The first moment of mind in this body. Did it come with the parents' two cells when they joined? So we got half the mind of the parents, each parent. Is that feasible? If mind is non-physical, how could it come from a physical source? The mind did not come from the parents. Seeing the logic of that. That moment of mind did come from nowhere, no cause. The logic of that. The mind come from a previous moment of mind, which is the mind before conception, the previous life mind. Accepting that, or looking at the logic, the reasoning of that. Continual chain of cause and effect. Some may remember past lives. There's well-documented cases. We may not be able to remember. Thinking of that possibility of past lives caused by this continuity of mind. A continuity without beginning. Think of our connection with Buddhism, the teachings, how, unlike many others, we had an interest. Where did that come from? Unusual. Our upbringing was probably not Buddhist, but we connected. the teachings, the teachers, perhaps the images, perhaps from past lives, connection. Using logic and reasoning to accept that possibility. And then coming back to this vast continuity, the mind in previous lives, the mind of this life leading right up to this current mind. The current mind, the mind we now experience, feeling that vast chain of consciousness. The mind stream. Now coming into the current mind again, the mind sitting here meditating. This mind will lead to the next moment of mind. The mind after the session, the mind this afternoon, tomorrow's mind. As long as we have this human body, human brain, we have the human mind. The human mind resting in the human body with the human brain. Dependent, but not deep, not totally dependent on the brain. After the thinking ahead, the continuity of mind right up until the end of this human body. When we have to leave the human body. The subtle mind. After we lose all the senses, the coarse mind. The Buddha nature mind, the clean, clear, unstained Buddha nature mind, the subtle mind. After the body disintegrates, that moment of mind will go to the Nibbana. Just resting, staying with that thought, that reasoning. All the imprints we've put on the mind in this life will be on our mind at the time of death. Positive imprints, positive results, positive auspicious death. And then auspicious rebirth, perhaps even liberation when we leave this body. Enlightenment. If not, auspicious rebirth, human body, caused by previous good imprints on the mind, where we can continue our practice. So the conclusion is, at this moment of the present moment of mind, we have freedom to, as much as possible, create positive imprints on the mind. Create virtuous actions, avoid non-virtuous actions, purify the mind while we have this human body. perfect opportunity to lay down seeds of future enlightenment. By generating compassion, wisdom in the human life we have left, we create the causes on our mind for enlightenment in the future. Liberation, perfect human rebirth. We have that freedom right now. Through mindfulness, watching carefully our actions of body, speech and mind, so that we create the causes on our mind stream for positive results, liberation and enlightenment. Feeling that sense of freedom, to choose the path to liberation. So we'll just end that practice now with a dedication from just a slightly different dedication from Lama Yeshe. And he's saying that right intention, so we're talking about mind, the key to it is our motivation, our intention. Right intention and a universally loving attitude are essential to finding a happy life, says Lama Yeshe. Accordingly, consider something like the following to help guide and focus your intention every day. It's dedicated to it. The rest of my life, it's my responsibility to grow in mindfulness and happiness. Each day, I'll expand the loving kindness I already have, and each morning I'll open my wisdom eye to see more and more deeply into the inner universal reality. I take responsibility for my life and I dedicate it to others by growing strong in loving kindness and wisdom. I will serve others as much as possible. Make determination that this will be your way of life, says Lama Yeshe. Let's dedicate to that. All right, thank you so much for being there. Great to have you to be together in cyberspace. Have a great day, great week, and I'll be back again same time next week. So go well, stay well. See you next week.